What started as simple acts of kindness toward a silent, mysterious child would soon unravel into a supernatural world where ancient bloodlines, forbidden bonds, and a father's desperate search would change everything. Celeste thought she knew about reality. Through the frosted glass of the mansion's service entrance, Celeste catches a glimpse of movement in the garden maze. A small figure hunches behind the stone fountain, pressed against the weathered cherub statue, like he's trying to become invisible. Even in the dim twilight, she can make out the thin frame of a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with coal-black hair that falls across his pale face. She pauses in her evening cleaning routine, duster forgotten in her hands. The Blackthorn estate has been her workplace for 3 years now, and in all that time, she's never seen a child on the property. The family she works for, the stern Mrs. Evangeline Blackthorn and her reclusive adult daughter Cordelia, have never mentioned any young relatives. "Celeste, dear, have you finished the library?" Mrs. Blackthorn's crisp voice echoes from the main hall. "Nearly done, ma'am," Celeste calls back, but her attention remains fixed on the window. The boy has moved now, creeping closer to the house, staying within the shadows cast by the towering oak trees that line the estate's perimeter. When she looks again, he's directly below her window, staring up at the warm light spilling from the kitchen. Their eyes meet through the glass, and something passes between them. A recognition, perhaps, or simply the acknowledgement of two souls who understand what it means to be on the outside looking in. The child's eyes are the most unusual color she's ever seen, a pale amber that seems to catch and hold the light. But what strikes her most is the wariness there, the careful distance he maintains even while clearly drawn to the warmth and safety the house represents. Power. Then, as if startled by being seen, he melts back into the maze's shadows. Celeste has worked in service since she was 16, moving from house to house, family to family. She's learned to keep her head down, do her work well, and never ask questions that don't concern her. But something about the boy tugs at her heart in a way that makes her forget all her carefully learned discretion. 20 minutes later, she slips out the back door with a plate of leftover roast and vegetables from the family's dinner. The autumn air carries a chill that makes her wrap her cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she approaches the fountain where she last saw him. "Hello?" she calls softly. "I brought you something to eat." Silence answers her, but she senses eyes watching from the darkness. She sets the plate on the fountain's edge, along with a thermos of hot soup she'd quickly prepared. "I'll leave this here," she says to the shadows, "in case you're hungry." When she returns an hour later to collect the dishes, both the plate and thermos are empty, cleaned so thoroughly they barely need washing. A small piece of paper is tucked under the plate's edge, with 2 words written in careful childish script: "Thank you." That night, as Celeste lies in her small room in the servants' quarters, she finds herself wondering about the mysterious boy. Where does he come from? Why is he alone in the gardens at night? And why do those amber eyes seem so familiar, like she's seen them somewhere before in a dream she can't quite remember? She doesn't know that across the estate's grounds, hidden in an abandoned groundskeeper's cottage, the boy sits clutching the empty thermos to his chest, breathing in the faint scent of kindness that still clings to it. She doesn't know that for the first time in months, He allows himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, he's found someone who won't turn him away. And neither of them knows that 50 miles away, a man with eyes the exact same shade of amber is tracking their scent through the night, following a trail that will lead him straight to the Blackthorn estate and to a confrontation that will change all their lives forever. The following evening, Celeste hurries through her duties, eager to return to the garden. She's prepared another plate, shepherd's pie this time, with fresh bread and a small apple tart she'd made during her break. Her heart pounds with nervous excitement as she approaches the fountain, presentation. But when she calls out softly, "Hello? I've brought dinner," the response she receives makes her blood freeze. A low growl emanates from the darkness behind the maze hedges. Not human, definitely not human. The sound is primal, warning, the kind that speaks to ancient fears buried deep in human DNA. Celeste's hands shake as she sets down the plate, every instinct telling her to run. But when she looks toward the sound, she catches a glimpse of those same amber eyes, reflecting the moonlight. And beneath the wildness, she sees something else. Fear. "It's all right," she whispers, though her voice trembles. "I'm not going to hurt you." The growling stops, replaced by the sound of rapid breathing. She can hear him moving through the undergrowth, but he doesn't come closer. Close. "I'll just leave this here, like yesterday," she says, backing away slowly. "Take your time." From her bedroom window later that night, she watches a small shadow dart across the lawn to the fountain. The dishes are empty again by morning, but this time there's no note. The third night, she tries a different approach. Instead of calling out, she simply places the food and sits on the fountain's edge, humming a lullaby her grandmother used to sing. She doesn't look toward the hedges, doesn't try to make contact, just creates a pocket of calm in the darkness. After 20 minutes, she hears the soft shuffle of bare feet on stone. When she glances up, the boy stands at the maze entrance, pale and thin in a torn shirt that's far too large for his small frame. His dark hair hangs in his eyes, but she can see the amber glow watching her warily. "Hello, Kieran," she says gently, though she has no idea where the name comes from. It simply feels right. The boy's eyes widen in surprise, but he doesn't flee. Instead, he takes a tentative step forward, then another, until he's close enough to reach for the plate. His movements are strange, too fluid, too aware, like a wild animal pretending to be human. "Celeste, what are you doing out there?" Mrs. Blackthorn's voice cuts through the night air like a blade. Kieran freezes, the plate halfway to his mouth. His eyes dart between Celeste and the house, panic flooding his features. "Just getting some air, ma'am," Celeste calls back, her heart racing. "I'll be in shortly. See that you are. The evening damp is terrible for one's health." When Celeste turns back, Kieran is gone. The plate sits abandoned on the fountain's edge, food untouched. She finds him the next morning, watching from deeper in the maze, too frightened to come close. It takes 3 more nights of patient waiting before he trusts her enough to eat in her presence again. This time, she notices things she'd missed before. The way his nostrils flare when he breathes, constantly scenting the air. How his head tilts at sounds too faint for her to hear, the way his bare feet make no sound on the gravel paths. "Where do you come from?" she asks softly as he finishes the last of a meat pie. Kieran's jaw works as if he's trying to form words, but only silence emerges. Frustration flickers across his face, followed by something that looks like shame. "You don't have to talk," Celeste assures him quickly. "I just want to make sure you're safe." He studies her face for a long moment, then reaches out tentatively to touch the simple silver cross she wears around her neck. His fingers recoil instantly, a sharp hiss escaping his lips, as if the metal had burned him. Celeste stares at the angry red mark on his fingertip, her mind struggling to process what she's just witnessed. Silver shouldn't burn human skin. Silver shouldn't do anything but feel cool and smooth to the touch. But as she looks into Kieran's amber eyes, seeing the wild intelligence there, the too sharp awareness, the way he moves like liquid shadow, she begins to understand that nothing about this child is ordinary. And somewhere in the distance, carried on the night wind, she swears she hears the sound of howling. For 2 weeks, Celeste maintains her nightly vigil. She learns Kieran's patterns, how he emerges only after the household has gone to sleep, how he tests the air before approaching, how he never turns his back on the forest that borders the estate. She brings him warm meals and clean clothes, which he accepts with a gratitude that breaks her heart. Slowly, carefully, she begins to earn his trust. She discovers he loves stories, his eyes growing wide when she tells him fairy tales or recounts books she's read. He can't speak or won't, she's not sure which, but he communicates through gestures and expressions that are remarkably eloquent. One night, she brings him paper and pencils. His drawings are extraordinary for a child his age. Detailed sketches of wolves running through moonlit forests, of a woman with kind eyes and long dark hair, of a man whose face he never quite completes, leaving it shadowed and unfinished. "Is this your mother?" she asks, pointing to the woman. Kieran nods, then draws a simple gravestone beside the figure. The message is clear and devastating. "And this one?" She indicates the shadowy male figure. This time, Kieran's reaction is complex, longing mixed with fear, love tangled with something that might be shame. He draws bars around the figure, then scribbles them out, then draws them again. Celeste doesn't push for explanations. Instead, she simply offers consistency. Every night, she brings food and warmth and safety. She sings to him when nightmares make him whimper in his sleep, for he does sleep now. Curled up in a nest of blankets, she's brought him in the old groundskeeper's shed. During the day, she finds herself watching for signs of him. She spots paw prints in the garden, mud after rain, far too large to belong to any dog. She notices small animals that seem unusually tame around the estate, as if something has been protecting them. And sometimes, late at night, she sees a shadow moving through the trees with impossible grace and speed. Mrs. Blackthorne begins to comment on her improved mood. "You've been quite cheerful lately, Celeste," she observes one morning, over breakfast. "Have you met a young man in town?" "No, ma'am," Celeste replies, focusing on arranging the china. "I've just been enjoying the autumn weather." Mrs. Blackthorne's pale eyes narrow slightly. "I do hope you're not developing any unsuitable attachments." I'd hate to lose such an efficient employee over romantic foolishness. The warning is clear, but Celeste finds she doesn't care. Kieran needs her, and she's never felt so purposeful in her life. 3 weeks into their routine, everything changes. She arrives at the fountain to find Kieran waiting, but he's not alone. 3 men in expensive suits stand nearby, their postures alert and predatory. Prices. Even in the darkness, she can see the amber gleam of their eyes. "Miss," the tallest one says, his voice carrying an authority that makes her want to step back, "you need to come with us." "I don't think so," Celeste replies, moving protectively closer to Kieran. "You don't understand," another man says. "This child is dangerous. He's not what you think he is." Kieran whimpers, pressing closer to her side. His small hand slips into hers, trembling. "He's just a little boy," she says firmly. The men exchange glances. "Ma'am," the leader says more gently, "that little boy is a werewolf, and his father is coming." The words hang in the air like a challenge to reality itself. Werewolf. The rational part of Celeste's mind wants to laugh, to dismiss these men as delusional. But as she looks down at Kieran, seeing the truth written in his amber eyes, feeling the tremor that runs through his small frame, she knows they're not lying. Possible. "That's impossible," she whispers. But even as she says it, pieces fall into place. The silver burning his skin, the way he moves, the paw prints, the howling in the distance. Is it? The leader steps closer, and in the moonlight, she can see his features clearly for the first time. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and those same unsettling amber eyes. "Look at him. Really look. Tell me you haven't noticed that he's different." Kieran makes a sound of distress, a whine that's definitely not human. Before her eyes, his form begins to shimmer and change. His limbs elongate, dark fur ripples across his skin, and within seconds, a small wolf cub sits where the boy had been, looking up at her, with familiar amber eyes filled with terror. Celeste stumbles backward, her hand flying to her mouth. The logical world she's known crumbles around her. "Don't be afraid," the man says, his voice gentler now. "He won't hurt you. He can't. Not anymore." The trauma damaged his ability to control the shift. He's stuck between forms, not fully human, not fully wolf. The cub whimpers and tries to change back, but the transformation is incomplete, leaving him in a horrifying in-between state that makes Celeste's heart ache. "Help him," she pleads, dropping to her knees beside the struggling child. "We're trying," another man says, "but he runs every time we get close. You're the first person he's trusted in months." "Months?" Celeste looks up sharply. "How long has he been alone?" "Since his mother died," the leader explains. "She was killed by hunters 6 months ago. Kieran witnessed it." The trauma broke something in him, his ability to hold human form, his ability to speak. He's been living wild ever since. And his father. The man's expression darkens. "His father?" Celeste prompts. "Thorn Ravencrest, the most powerful alpha on the East Coast. He's been searching for his son for months, following every lead, tracking every scent, and 3 days ago, He caught Kieran's trail. He'll be here soon, Press said. That's good, isn't it? Celeste asks. A child should be with his father. The men exchange another look, this one heavy with meaning. Thorn Ravencrest isn't known for his patience or gentleness, the leader says carefully. He's a war leader, Miss Whitmore. He's spent the last 6 months in a rage that's left bodies in his wake. Every hunter, every human who might have been involved in his mate's death. What are you saying? We're saying that when he finds out a human has been caring for his son, feeding him, touching him. The man's voice trails off meaningfully. Let's just say it won't go well for you. Celeste looks down at Kieran, who has managed to shift back to his human form and is now clinging to her skirt, tears streaming down his pale cheeks. I won't abandon him, she says firmly. You don't understand, another man insists. Thorn will kill you. It's what he does. It's all he's done for months. Then help me, Celeste challenges. Teach me what I need to know. Help me help him. The leader, who introduces himself as Marcus, Thorn's second in command, stares at her for a long moment. You're either very brave or very foolish, he says finally. Maybe both, Celeste admits, but I'm not going anywhere. And so, in the dark gardens of the Blackthorn estate, Celeste receives a crash course in werewolf physiology, pack dynamics, and the complex world she's stumbled into. She learns about mates and bonds, about the sacred nature of pack family, about the laws that govern their kind. Most importantly, she learns about Thorn Ravencrest, a man whose love for his family is matched only by his capacity for violence, and who is now only days away from discovering that his traumatized son has been in the care of a human woman who, according to pack law, has no right to touch an alpha's child. He needs to come with us now, Marcus says as dawn approaches. Before Thorn arrives. No. Kieran's voice is barely a whisper, the first word he's spoken in months, but it carries absolute conviction. He wraps his arms tighter around Celeste's waist. Stay with Celeste. The sound of his voice makes everyone freeze. Even Marcus looks stunned. Kieran, he says gently, your father is coming. You need to be with the pack when he arrives. No, Kieran repeats, louder this time. Celeste is safe. Celeste is pack. The declaration sends a chill through the assembled wolves. Celeste doesn't understand the full implications, but she can see the concern on their faces. That's not how it works, little Alpha. Marcus explains carefully. Humans can't be pack, and your father won't understand the bond you've formed with Miss Whitmore. Then don't tell him, Celeste suggests. Let me talk to him first. Explain the situation. The look Marcus gives her is part admiration, part pity. You can't reason with a grieving alpha, Miss Whitmore, especially not one like Thorn. He's been half mad with loss and rage for months. The only thing keeping him sane is the need to find his son. All the more reason for Kieran to be here when he arrives, Celeste argues. Seeing that his child is safe and cared for might calm him. Or it might enrage him further when he realizes a human has been raising his heir. Another wolf interjects. As if summoned by their conversation, a howl echoes across the estate grounds, deep, mournful, and filled with such raw pain that it makes Celeste's eyes water. Kieran goes rigid in her arms. He's here? Marcus breathes. 3 hours early. The howl is answered by others, closer now, surrounding the estate. The temperature seems to drop 10 degrees in seconds. Kieran, you have to go to him, Marcus urges. Now, before he finds you here. But Kieran shakes his head violently, his small body beginning to tremble with the telltale signs of an impending shift. Quote, Celeste, he whispers urgently, don't let him take me, please. Her heart breaks at the terror in his voice, but she knows Marcus is right. A child belongs with his father, no matter how complicated the circumstances. I won't let anything bad happen to you, she promises, kneeling to meet his eyes. But you need to see your papa. He's been looking for you, missing you. He'll be angry, Kieran says, tears streaming down his cheeks. I couldn't save Mama. I couldn't change properly. I'm broken. Oh, sweetheart, Celeste pulls him close. You're not broken. You're perfect just as you are. Another howl, closer now, makes them all tense. There's no more time, Marcus says grimly. Thorn's caught the scent. He knows Kieran is here, and he knows you're with him. Through the trees, Celeste can see shapes moving, large, predatory forms that make her primal instincts scream in terror. Take Kieran and run, she tells Marcus. I'll distract his father, give you time to explain. That's suicide, Marcus protests. You don't know what you're suggesting. But it's too late for arguments. The first wolf breaks through the tree line. Massive, silver gray, with eyes that burn like molten gold in the darkness. Even in wolf form, there's no mistaking the authority that radiates from every line of his body. Thorn Ravencrest has arrived. The great wolf's gaze fixes on the group by the fountain, and Celeste can actually see the moment he spots his son. The change that comes over him is immediate and devastating. Relief, joy. And then, as his eyes move to Celeste, a rage so pure and deadly that she takes an involuntary step backward. Run, Marcus whispers urgently, but Celeste stands her ground. Someone has to protect Kieran from his father's fury, even if that someone is just a human maid with more heart than sense. The confrontation that follows is unlike anything Celeste could have imagined. Thorn Ravencrest, having shifted back to human form, stands before them in torn clothing, his powerful frame radiating barely controlled violence. His amber eyes burn with an intensity that makes her want to cower, but she forces herself to remain steady. You, he snarls, his voice rough from months of grief and howling. What have you done to my son? I've cared for him, Celeste replies, proud that her voice doesn't shake. Fed him, kept him safe. Safe? Thorn's laugh is bitter. You think a human can keep a werewolf safe? You've contaminated him with your scent, confused his instincts, made him weak. Kieran whimpers and tries to hide behind Celeste's skirts, which only seems to enrage his father further. Look at him, Thorn continues, clinging to a human like some lost pup. You've damaged him beyond repair. She helped me, Kieran whispers, finding his voice again. When I was hungry, when I couldn't change back properly. Thorn's expression shifts, pain flickering beneath the anger. You've been feeding regularly? Sleeping under shelter? Marcus steps forward carefully. The boy's been living in the old groundskeeper's cottage. Miss Whitmore has been bringing him meals every night for weeks. For a moment, gratitude wars with suspicion on Thorne's face. Then his expression hardens again. That changes nothing. No human should touch what's mine. He turns to Marcus. Take Kieran home. Now, Papa, no. Kieran pleads, but 2 pack members have already moved to flank him. You'll forget this human kindness, Thorne tells his son. It's not natural for our kind. As the pack prepares to leave with Kieran, Celeste makes a desperate decision. Wait, she calls out. Let me write to him. Let him know he's not forgotten. Thorne whirls on her. Absolutely not. Just letters, she presses, to help him adjust. He's been through trauma, losing his mother, being alone for months. He needs stability, continuity. He needs his pack, Thorne says coldly, not human sentiment. But Marcus intervenes. Alpha, the boy has been more responsive tonight than in months. Perhaps some gradual transition would be beneficial. Thorne studies his son's tear-streaked face, the way Kieran keeps reaching towards Celeste even as the pack members hold him back. 1 month, he says finally. 1 letter a week. Then it ends. It's not much, but it's something. As the pack disappears into the forest with Kieran, Celeste catches the boy's amber eyes one last time. The trust she sees there, the silent plea not to forget him, sears itself into her memory. The letters become her lifeline over the following weeks. She writes about her days at the estate, about the changing seasons, about books she's read that she thinks he might enjoy. His responses come sporadically, sometimes just drawings, sometimes a few carefully printed words, occasionally longer passages as his confidence grows. Through their correspondence, she learns about his new life, pack training, learning to control his shifts, slowly rebuilding the confidence that trauma had shattered. He tells her about his father's moods, sometimes gentle when they're alone, other times sharp with impatience, when Kieran struggles with lessons that should come naturally. But it's clear that Thorne is trying. The man who had seemed like a monster in the moonlight reveals himself through Kieran's letters to be a father, struggling with his own grief while trying to raise a traumatized child. Papa cried last night, one letter reads. He didn't think I could hear, but wolves have good ears. He was holding Mama's picture. Celeste finds herself oddly moved by this glimpse of vulnerability in the fearsome Alpha. Despite their hostile first meeting, she begins to understand his protective fury. He's a father who lost his mate and nearly lost his son, acting from a place of desperate love rather than malice. As the month deadline approaches, she dreads the end of their correspondence. But Kieran's final letter contains an unexpected development. Particlus Siomaras. Papa says I can keep writing if I want to. He read your letters. Sorry, but he needed to make sure they were safe. He said you have surprising wisdom for a human. That's good, right? The letters continue, stretching from weeks into months, then into a year. Through them, Celeste watches Kieran grow and heal, his confidence returning along with his ability to control his transformations. She celebrates his victories and comforts him through setbacks, becoming a constant thread of support in his young life. And occasionally, very rarely, She catches glimpses of his father in the margins, corrections to Kieran's spelling, additions to his stories about pack life, once even a brief postscript thanking her for her continued positive influence on his son. It's not much, but it's a beginning. Dear Celeste, the letter begins, but the handwriting is different, bolder, more mature. Kieran asked me to write this time because he's struggling with some difficult emotions and thinks you might help him understand them. Celeste stares at the unfamiliar script, her heart racing. After 3 years of correspondence, Thorne Ravencrest has finally written to her directly. My son has been having dreams, the letter continues. Not nightmares about his mother's death. Those have mostly stopped, thanks in part to your counsel. These are different. Dreams about the future, about growing up, about finding his mate. In every dream, his mate has your face. Celeste sets the letter down with shaking hands. She's watched Kieran grow from a traumatized 8-year-old into a thoughtful 12-year-old through their correspondence. But she's never allowed herself to dwell on the implications of their bond. I'm writing because this situation has become complicated in ways I don't think you fully understand. Werewolves don't choose their mates the way humans choose their partners. It's a recognition, a calling that often manifests in childhood and only grows stronger with time. The letter goes on to explain pack dynamics, the sacred nature of mate bonds, the expectations placed on an alpha heir. Al, they, text, D. Thorne's tone is clinical, educational, but she can read the underlying tension. Kieran is convinced you're his destined mate. At 12, this seems like a child's fantasy. But werewolf instincts are rarely wrong, and as his alpha father, I'm concerned about the implications. Celeste thinks about the boy she's been corresponding with, his intelligence, his kindness, the way he always asks about her well-being before sharing his own news. She's watched him grow up through letters and photographs, feeling pride in his accomplishments and worry during his struggles. But he's 12, she's 26. I'm not writing to end your correspondence, Thorne continues. Kieran has made remarkable progress with your support, and I won't be the one to break that bond. But I need you to understand what you represent to him, and what that might mean for his future, and yours. The letter concludes with a request that makes her stomach twist. If you could visit during his summer break, it might help clarify things for all of us. Kieran has been begging to see you in person, and I think it's time. 3 days later, Celeste finds herself in a car traveling toward the Ravencrest estate, her hands clenched in her lap. She's requested time off from the Blackthorn family, claiming a family emergency. In a way, it's not entirely untrue. The Ravencrest territory is vast, thousands of acres of wilderness, protected by both money and pack law. The main house, when it finally comes into view, takes her breath away. It's more castle than home, all stone towers and Gothic windows, surrounded by gardens that blend seamlessly into wild forest. Kieran is waiting on the front steps when she arrives. The boy from her memories is gone, replaced by a young man who's tall for his age, with his father's broad shoulders already beginning to show. His amber eyes are the same, but there's a new intensity in them as he watches her emerge from the car. Celeste, he says, and his voice has started to change, cracking slightly on her name. Hello, Kieran, she replies softly, unsure of the protocol. Does she hug him? Shake his hand? The uncertainty must show on her face because he makes the decision for her, crossing the distance between them in 2 quick strides and wrapping her in a fierce embrace. He's almost as tall as she is now, and stronger than any human 12-year-old should be. The boy who used to cling to her skirts has become someone else entirely, someone whose embrace makes her acutely aware of the complications Thorne warned her about. "You came," Kieran whispers into her hair. "I wasn't sure you would." Before she can respond, another voice cuts through the afternoon air. "Kieran, step back." Thorne Ravencrest emerges from the house, and Celeste's breath catches. The wild, grief-stricken man she met in the garden 4 years ago has been replaced by someone who commands attention without effort. His dark hair is perfectly styled, his expensive clothes fitted to his powerful frame. He moves with the fluid grace of a predator, but there's a controlled elegance to him now that speaks of civilization overlaying his primal nature. He's devastatingly handsome, and the amber eyes that study her hold an intelligence that makes her feel suddenly exposed. "Clynid Flive, Miss Whitmore," he says, inclining his head politely. "Welcome to our home." The visit to the Ravencrest estate stretches from the planned weekend into a full week. Kieran refuses to let Celeste leave, and Thorne, seeing how much happier his son is with her there, doesn't insist on her departure. But the situation grows more complicated by the day. Kieran follows her everywhere, his devotion obvious and increasingly inappropriate for a 12-year-old boy. He brings her gifts: flowers from the forest, smooth stones from the river, a carved wooden pendant he made himself. His eyes track her every movement with an intensity that makes the pack members uncomfortable. "He's imprinting," Marcus tells Thorne during a private conversation Celeste overhears. "It's getting stronger, not weaker. You need to do something before it becomes irreversible." "What would you have me do?" Thorne replies, frustration evident in his voice. "She saved his life, Marcus. She's been his anchor for 4 years. Breaking that bond now could destroy him, and letting it continue could destroy the pack's future. An alpha can't be mated to a human, Thorne. You know this." Pretends. Celeste pretends not to hear, but the conversation haunts her. That evening, she tries to talk to Kieran about his feelings, to explain the difference between gratitude and love, between childhood attachment and adult partnership. He listens with the patience of someone much older, then takes her hands in his. "You don't understand," he says quietly. "This isn't something I chose. It's something I am. You're part of me, Celeste. You have been since that first night in the garden." The certainty in his voice, the mature way he speaks about emotions that should be beyond his years, unsettles her deeply. "Kieran, you're 12. I'm not human," he interrupts gently. "I don't mature the way humans do. In 2 years, I'll be considered adult by pack law. In 6 years, I'll be expected to take over as alpha." The reminder of what he is, what he'll become, creates a chasm between them that suddenly feels unbridgeable. That night, Celeste seeks out Thorne in his study. She finds him staring into a fire, a glass of whiskey in his hand, looking every inch the brooding romantic hero from a Gothic novel. "I should leave," she says without preamble. He looks up at her, amber eyes reflecting the firelight. Running away won't change what's between you and my son. Power is. There's nothing between us, she insists. He's a child. Is he? Thorn stands, moving closer. Or is that just what you tell yourself to avoid facing the truth? What truth, Potters? That you feel it too. His voice is low, hypnotic. The pull, the recognition. You've felt it for years, haven't you? That sense of belonging, of being exactly where you're meant to be, presentation. Celeste backs away, but he follows. Not threatening, just inexorable. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? He stops just close enough that she can smell his scent, pine and leather, and something wild. Tell me you don't dream about amber eyes. Tell me you don't feel empty when you're not writing to him, like part of your soul is missing. She can't, because it's true. For 4 years, her correspondence with Kieran has been the brightest part of her life. His letters are the first things she reads each morning, and she falls asleep thinking about his day, his struggles, his small victories. He's 12, she repeats weakly. Now, Thorn agrees, but not forever. The question is, what are you going to do when he's not? Before she can answer, the study door bursts open. Kieran stands there, eyes wild, breathing hard. She's leaving, he says. Not a question, but a statement heavy with betrayal. I can smell it on her. She's already decided. Kieran Celeste begins. No. His voice cracks with emotion. You promised you wouldn't abandon me. You promised. I'm not abandoning you. I'm trying to do what's best. For who? Kieran demands. For the pack who thinks I'm an abomination for loving a human. For my father who wishes I'd imprint on someone more suitable. Or for you, because facing this is too scary. The accusation hits like a slap. Because he's right. She is scared. Terrified of the implications, of the feelings she's been trying not to examine, of the way Thorn's words resonated with uncomfortable truth. I won't watch you throw away your future for me, she says finally. Then don't, Kieran replies, his young face hardening with resolve beyond his years. But don't ask me to throw away mine for your peace of mind. The argument that follows is devastating. Harsh words are spoken by all 3 of them. Accusations, ultimatums, truths that cut deep. When it's over, Celeste is packed and gone within the hour, leaving behind a 12-year-old alpha heir with a broken heart and a father who watches his son retreat into himself with familiar despair. The letters stop completely after that. 5 years pass in silence. Celeste throws herself into work, eventually leaving the Blackthorn estate to manage a small hotel in the mountains. She tells herself she's moved on, that the strange interlude with the werewolf family was just a chapter she's closed. But she still wears the wooden pendant Kieran carved for her, still dreams of amber eyes, still feels like something essential is missing from her life. Then, on a snowy December evening, everything changes. She's working late in the hotel lobby, reviewing guest lists for the holiday season, when the front door opens with a gust of winter air. She looks up to offer the standard greeting, and the words die in her throat. The man in the doorway is tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that makes everyone in the room turn to look. His dark coat is expensive, his bearing confident, his face beautiful in a way that seems almost otherworldly. But it's his eyes that stop her heart, amber eyes that hold recognition, intensity, and something that might be hope. Kieran Ravencrest has found her. But this isn't the 12-year-old boy she left behind. This is a man in his prime, probably 17 or 18 now, with his father's commanding presence and a maturity that speaks of hard-won growth. "Hello, Celeste," he says, and his voice is deep, rich, completely transformed from the boy she remembers. Kieran. She can barely manage his name. "What are you doing here?" Quote, "I graduate next month," he says, approaching the desk slowly, as if she might bolt. "I'm officially an adult by both human and pack law. I thought you should know." The implications hang between them like a challenge. She's 29 now. He's 17, going on 18. Still a gap, but not the impossible chasm it once was. "How did you find me?" "I never stopped looking," he admits. "I hired investigators, used pack resources, followed every lead. It took me 3 years to track you here." Kieran. "I'm not here to pressure you," he says quickly. "I just needed you to know that nothing has changed for me. You're still the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing on my mind when I sleep. You're still the only future I want." She stares at him, seeing the boy she knew in his features, but also recognizing the man he's become. The certainty in his voice, the way he holds himself, the intensity of his gaze, everything about him screams alpha in waiting. "You could have anyone," she whispers. "I don't want anyone else." His smile is slight but devastating. "I never have." Before she can respond, another figure appears in the doorway. Thorn Ravencrest enters like a force of nature, and Celeste's breath catches at the sight of him. If Kieran has grown into his power, his father has refined his into something even more dangerous. "Miss Whitmore," Thorn says, inclining his head with the same polite formality he'd shown years ago. "You came together?" she asks, surprised. "I insisted," Thorn replies. "This involves the pack's future. It couldn't be left to teenage impulses alone." The casual insult makes Kieran's jaw tighten, but he doesn't argue. The dynamics between father and son have clearly evolved during her absence, but the underlying tension remains. "We need to talk," Thorn continues. "All of us. There are things you need to understand about what Kieran is offering, what it would mean if you accepted. And if I don't?" Father and son exchange a look heavy with meaning. "Then he becomes alpha unmated," Thorn says simply, "and the pack suffers for it." The weight of responsibility settles on her shoulders like a lead blanket. Suddenly, this isn't just about her feelings or Kieran's persistence. There are larger implications, other lives affected by her choices. "I need time to think," she says. "Of course," Kieran agrees immediately. "I'm staying at the inn down the road. Take all the time you need." But as they prepare to leave, he turns back one more time. "Just remember," he says softly, "some things are worth waiting for. Some things are worth fighting for. And some bonds transcend every obstacle except the ones we create ourselves." 3 days pass before Celeste works up the courage to visit Kieran at his inn. She finds him in the small restaurant, looking out at the snow-covered mountains with the same patient intensity she remembers from his childhood. He's even more striking in daylight. Tall and lean, but with the kind of strength that speaks of careful training. His movements are fluid, economical, every gesture controlled. He's become everything she might have expected from that fierce boy in the garden, but seeing the reality of it leaves her breathless. "Thank you for coming," he says, rising to greet her. "I couldn't stop thinking about what your father said," she admits, "about the pack suffering." Kieran's expression tightens. He shouldn't have said that. This isn't about pack politics, Celeste. It's about us. But it is about the pack, isn't it? She takes the seat across from him. You're going to be their leader. They need you to be strong, focused, completely committed to their well-being. And you think being mated to you would compromise that? The direct question forces her to examine feelings she's been avoiding for years. "I think a leader deserves someone who strengthens him," she says carefully. "Someone from his world who understands the pressures he faces." "You think you make me weak?" "I think I make you distracted." Kieran laughs, and the sound is warm, rich, completely without mockery. "Celeste, do you know what I've accomplished in the 5 years since you left?" She shakes her head. "I mastered my shifting abilities completely, something most wolves struggle with for decades. I learned to lead, to make hard decisions, to balance pack needs with individual desires. I studied human law and werewolf tradition, economics and military strategy. I can negotiate treaties and plan battles in equal measure. Imse, I say, Imse and traditions are something that matters her bias, and the polity. I stories that." He leans forward, amber eyes, intense. "And through all of it, every victory, every challenge, every moment of growth, it was all driven by one goal: becoming worthy of you." The confession hits her like a physical blow. She's spent 5 years trying to convince herself that what they had was just a childhood attachment, a trauma bond that would fade with time and distance. But looking at him now, seeing the man he's become, she has to face the truth she's been running from. He isn't the only one whose life has been shaped by their connection. "I've made so many mistakes," she whispers. "We both have," he agrees, "but maybe that's not what matters now." He reaches across the table, his fingers brushing hers. The contact sends electricity up her arm, and she doesn't pull away. "Tell me what you're afraid of," he says softly. "Everything." The honesty escapes before she can stop it. "I'm afraid of what your pack will think of a human Luna. I'm afraid I'll hold you back from becoming the leader they need. I'm afraid that what I feel for you is just guilt and nostalgia, and I'll ruin your life based on something that isn't real." And he senses there's more. "I'm afraid that what I feel for you is completely real, and that terrifies me even more." The admission hangs between them like a bridge neither is sure they should cross. Kieran's eyes search her face, looking for something she's not sure she's ready to give. "Can I show you something?" he asks. She nods, not trusting her voice. He pulls out his phone and scrolls to a photo. When he turns it toward her, she sees a room. His room, presumably. But it's the walls that make her breath catch. Every letter she ever wrote him is framed and displayed. Every drawing, every photograph she sent, every small piece of her life she shared with him over 4 years of correspondence. The room is a shrine to their connection, a testament to the consistency of his feelings. "This is what you mean to me," he says simply. "This is why nothing else has ever mattered." Looking at the evidence of his devotion, displayed with such care and reverence, Celeste finally allows herself to acknowledge what she's been denying for years. She loves him too. Has loved him since he was a broken child who trusted her with his vulnerability. Has loved him through his growth, his struggles, his transformation into the remarkable man before her. Has loved him enough to walk away when she thought it was best for him, and enough to stay away even when it nearly destroyed her. "Kieran." She begins, but he shakes his head. "You don't have to decide right now," he says. "Just don't disappear again. Let me court you properly this time. Let me show you what we could be together." The old-fashioned word, court, makes her smile despite everything. "Is that what this is? A courtship?" "If you'll have me," he says, and for just a moment, she sees the uncertain boy he used to be beneath the confident man he's become. Her answer comes without conscious thought. Yes. The pack assembly is unlike anything Celeste has ever witnessed. Hundreds of werewolves gathered in a vast natural amphitheater carved into the mountainside, their eyes reflecting the light of torches like stars in the darkness. The air thrums with barely contained power, and she can feel the weight of their attention as Kieran leads her to the center of the gathering. This is his formal introduction as the next alpha, and by bringing her here, he's making a public declaration of intent that will bind both of them to whatever happens next. Thorn stands at the apex of the gathering, commanding and severe in ceremonial robes that speak of ancient traditions. When he begins to speak, his voice carries to every corner of the amphitheater without amplification. "Tonight, we witness the coming of age of our next alpha," he announces. Kieran Ravencrest has proven himself in combat, in wisdom, and in leadership. By pack law and sacred tradition, he is ready to claim his birthright. A chorus of howls greets this pronouncement, raising the hair on Celeste's arms. She feels terrifyingly exposed among these beings, who could tear her apart with their bare hands, but Kieran's presence beside her is steady, reassuring. However, Thorn continues, and the assembly falls silent. Our future alpha has made an unprecedented choice. He has claimed a human as his mate. The silence that follows is deafening. Then, slowly, murmurs begin to ripple through the crowd. Surprise, disapproval, confusion. Some of the voices carry clear hostility. "This union challenges our most sacred laws," Thorn goes on, his amber eyes finding Celeste in the crowd. "For 1,000 years, pack leaders have mated within our kind. Human mates are accepted among the rank and file, but never in the alpha line." Celeste feels her heart sinking. This was a mistake. She should never have agreed to come here, should never have let herself believe that love could overcome such fundamental obstacles. But then Kieran steps forward, and when he speaks, his voice carries his father's commanding presence, amplified by the passion of youth. "I stand before you not just as your future alpha, but as a wolf who knows his own heart," he declares here. "5 years ago, I was a broken child, traumatized and alone. This woman saved me. She fed me when I was starving, sheltered me when I was lost, gave me hope when I wanted to die. His words carry across the amphitheater, and Celeste can see some faces beginning to soften. She asked for nothing in return, expected nothing. When my wolf recognized her as mate, she walked away rather than complicate my life. For 5 years, she stayed away, thinking it was best for me, for the pack, for everyone but herself. Cluck. He turns to look at her, his amber eyes blazing with conviction. That is the kind of selflessness I want beside me as I lead you. That is the strength of character our pack needs in its Luna. An older woman in the crowd stands up. Celeste recognizes her as Elena, one of the pack's most respected elders. What of cubs? Elena asks sharply. Human wolf matings rarely produce offspring. How will the alpha line continue? The question hits like a physical blow. It's the one concern Celeste hasn't let herself fully consider. The possibility that loving Kieran might mean denying him the chance to father the next generation of pack leaders. That is for the moon goddess to decide. Kieran responds without hesitation. I will not choose a mate based on her breeding potential like she's livestock. I choose Celeste because she is my other half, the completion of my soul. With or without cubs, she makes me a better alpha. Pretty words, another voice calls out. But what happens when she ages and dies while you're still in your prime? Humans are fragile, short-lived. How can she be a proper Luna when she'll be gone in a few decades? The cruelty of the question takes Celeste's breath away. It's a truth she's tried not to think about, that even if everything else works out, she'll grow old and die while Kieran remains young and vital. But before she can speak, before Kieran can answer, Thorne's voice cuts through the debate. Enough, he commands. And the authority in his tone silences everyone instantly. I have something to say. He descends from his position at the apex, walking directly to where Celeste and Kieran stand. When he stops before them, his expression is unreadable. 6 months ago, I commissioned an investigation, he announces, loud enough for everyone to hear. I wanted to understand the true nature of the bond between my son and this human woman. Celeste's heart pounds as Thorne reaches into his robes and withdraws a leather scroll. What I discovered, he continues, changes everything we think we know about this situation. He unrolls the scroll, revealing what looks like a family tree covered in ancient symbols and connecting lines. Celeste Whitmore is not entirely human, Thorne declares, and the amphitheater erupts into chaos. Her grandmother, Margaret Whitmore, was a wolf who chose to live as human after her mate's death. The bloodline has been dormant for 2 generations, but it's there. Celeste stares at him in shock. That's impossible. Is it? Thorne's smile is slight but significant. Haven't you always felt different? Always been drawn to the moon, to wild places, to creatures others fear? Looking back on her life, she realizes there have always been signs. Her unusual intuition, her ability to calm frightened animals the way she never felt quite at home in purely human spaces. The blood is thin, Thorne admits, but it's enough. Enough to explain the mate bond, enough to make her a suitable Luna, enough to ensure that any cubs born to this union will carry the strength of both lines. The revelation transforms the entire gathering. What had seemed like an impossible union between human and wolf suddenly becomes something much more acceptable, the reunion of two branches of the same mystical tree. But even as relief floods through her, Celeste realizes that this changes nothing about her fundamental choice. Wolf blood or not, she still has to decide whether to bind her life to Kieran's, whether to take on the enormous responsibility of being Luna to a pack of supernatural beings. The decision is still yours, Kieran says softly, reading her thoughts. This doesn't obligate you to anything. Looking out at the assembled pack, hundreds of faces turn toward her expectantly. Celeste feels the weight of their future resting on her shoulders. But when she looks at Kieran, sees the hope and love and unwavering faith in his amber eyes, she knows there's really only one choice she can make. I accept, she says, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. I accept the bond, the responsibility, and the honor of being your mate. The howl that rises from the assembly is like nothing she's ever heard. Pure joy, wild celebration, the sound of a pack welcoming its new Luna. 6 months later, Celeste stands in the same amphitheater where she accepted her role as Kieran's mate. But everything has changed. The space has been transformed for their bonding ceremony, decorated with flowers and moonlight, filled with pack members, and invited guests from allied supernatural communities. She wears a dress of flowing silver silk that catches the light like moonbeams, her grandmother's wolf pendant, a family heirloom she never knew existed until Thorn's revelation, gleaming at her throat. Her hair is woven with wildflowers, and her eyes shine with a happiness she never thought possible. Kieran waits for her at the center of the circle, magnificent in formal ceremonial garb that marks him as the alpha heir. When their eyes meet across the space, the connection between them is visible to everyone present, a bond so strong it seems to shimmer in the air between them. The months since their public acceptance have been a whirlwind of preparation. Celeste has learned pack customs, studied werewolf law, trained with the other women to develop her dormant supernatural abilities. It hasn't been easy. There were days when the pressure seemed overwhelming, moments when she doubted whether she was strong enough for what lay ahead. But Kieran has been beside her every step of the way, patient and supportive and utterly devoted. And gradually, the pack has welcomed her, seeing how she strengthens their future alpha, how her compassion balances his intensity, how her outsider's perspective brings fresh solutions to old problems. Now, as the ancient bonding ritual begins, Celeste feels a sense of rightness that goes beyond mere happiness. This is where she belongs. This is who she was always meant to become. The pack priestess, an ancient woman whose eyes hold centuries of wisdom, begins the ceremony with words spoken in the old tongue. Celeste doesn't understand every phrase, but the meaning flows through her blood, awakening instincts she's only just beginning to discover. By moon and star, by earth and tree, by the sacred laws of pack and family, the priestess intones, "We bind these souls in eternal unity." When it's time for vows, Kieran's voice is strong and sure. "Celeste, you saved me when I was lost, loved me when I was broken, and stayed true to our bond, even when the world told you it was impossible. You are my mate, my Luna, my heart walking outside my body, promise to protect you, cherish you, and stand beside you through whatever challenges we face. Celeste's response comes from the depths of her soul. Kieran, you taught me what it means to love without reservation, to fight for what matters, to believe in bonds that transcend logic and convention. You are my anchor, my strength, my home. I promise to support you, guide you, and build a future worthy of the trust your pack has placed in us. As they speak the final ritual words together, something shifts in the air around them. The mate bond, which has existed between them for so long as potential, finally snaps into place with an almost audible click. Celeste gasps as she feels Kieran's emotions flood through her. His love, his relief, his overwhelming joy at finally having her as his mate in truth as well as heart. The pack erupts into celebration, howls echoing across the mountainside, but Celeste barely hears them. All her attention is focused on the man before her, on the amber eyes that have haunted her dreams for so many years, on the bond that now connects them in ways deeper than marriage, stronger than death. No regrets? Kieran asks softly, his hands cupping her face. Only that it took us so long to get here, she replies. And when he kisses her, the pack's howls grow even louder. Later, much later, when the celebration has wound down and the last guests have departed, Celeste finds herself alone with Kieran in their new home, a cabin built on the spot where they first met, where a frightened child once hid in the shadows, and a kind woman offered unconditional compassion. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asks, curled against his side as they watch the fire burn low. "Every day," he admits. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't seen me, hadn't cared enough to help." "You would have found your way," she says with certainty. "You're stronger than you know." "Maybe," he agrees. "But it wouldn't have been the same way. It wouldn't have led me to you." As they sit together in the quiet cabin, surrounded by the vast wilderness that is now their domain, Celeste reflects on the unlikely journey that brought them here. From a chance encounter in a moonlit garden to a love that rewrote the laws of their world, it's been a story of patience, persistence, and the power of bonds that refuse to break. Outside, the pack settles into sleep under the protection of their new Alpha and Luna. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new opportunities to prove themselves worthy of the trust placed in them. But tonight, there is only peace, contentment, and the knowledge that sometimes the most impossible love stories are the ones most worth fighting for. In the dying firelight, Kieran's amber eyes catch hers one more time, and Celeste sees in them the same wonder, the same gratitude, the same absolute devotion that first took root in a frightened child's heart so many years ago. Some bonds, she realizes, are simply meant to be. No matter how long it takes, no matter what obstacles stand in the way, love finds a way to win. And in the quiet cabin where their story began, the Alpha and his Luna finally claim the victory they've earned. Through years of patience, sacrifice, and unwavering faith in each other. Their real adventure is just beginning.